Have you ever been in this situation where you're talking to a prospect and they seem interested and excited, but then you get the sense they really don't understand how you are different, what you do, and how they could leverage it to accomplish great things with your product? This happens so often because people start off in the mode of, yeah, I'm all set. They may want to learn about your product. They may be excited to learn about it. But the default is, I'm all set. I've got that covered. And this happens a lot in the cybersecurity space. This is a space I sold into for quite a while. And it's very keyword oriented, meaning things like firewall, penetration tests. And these keywords exist in every industry. And if we're unable to communicate how we are different and what happens if you don't have this particular thing covered, we don't get the sale. If I said, hey, do you have a retirement plan? Of course, you probably have a retirement plan. It might be to never retire. It might be to work in retirement. But you have some kind of plan. You're not going to sit there and go, nah, never thought of it. Or a health plan. Or whatever type of thing. If you aren't able to come up with a story, an analogy, some way of communicating this, people default to, hey, I'm all set, all covered here. But they're not, because you're not talking about the real issues. You're not building awareness of the problem that you solve differently than how other people solve it. And if you can't do that, you can't get them curious and curious into interest. This is a major challenge for us in sales because we are professional communicators. And in this interview, I'll tell the story of how I did it at one company. It was a breakthrough. It was literally, it went from meetings going okay to meetings going, yeah, let's test this. Let's bring this in. Because everyone else before me at the company was talking about who we are, what we do, how it works. And everybody was listening and go, that's interesting, but all sat here. Thank you. Let's get into this interview. I'll sum it up at the end because this skill is very critical. The use of an analogy has always been a communication tool that is insanely powerful because you're building off of what they already know to take them to where you want them. Now, when I first got in sales, a car analogy was always useful. We're the Cadillac of this space. We're the Mercedes of this space. They're the Toyota of this space. And that gave everybody a perspective, a sense of where we fit into the market. Now, today people say, oh, we're the Netflix of this, or we're the Amazon of that. It helps people start to understand what you do. Insanely powerful. How can you apply it to your product? We talk a lot about this in office hours, is ways of communicating how you are different and to take your client from where they are to where you want them to be. Most of us just talk and hope that they get it, hope that they can bridge it, but we've got to hold their hand and cross the bridge with them. Otherwise, they don't get it. So let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. Make sure you're checking our friends over at CoVideo. Video email is one of the things that's cutting through the noise today. Go check out their website, covideo.com. They've got excellent tutorials on how to leverage video. We're all doing it now. How to become really good at it really fast. It's covideo.com. Here we go. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show. As we're getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Brian. Thank you for having me. I'm the head of sales for a company called Team Cumry. We are a cybersecurity organization, and I've been in sales for about 20 years in all various shapes and forms. Yeah. Most recently, within the 5 or 6 years in leadership.
And do you have much cyber experience?
Yeah, actually I do. I started off in IT, actually, at Gateway Computers way back in the day in hardware. Migrated over to software, and the last 12 or 13 have been in cyber, specifically security. So
And that's a pretty crowded market. Not that a lot of people do what you do, but a lot of people are in that security category. And how do you find it getting outbound conversation started?
Yes, in specifically in our industry, gosh, there's at least 4 or 5 thousand, viable cybersecurity companies out there. A lot of them specifically have intelligence, some sort of a threat intelligence. So I picture the Finding Nemo seagulls, and we're one of them trying to get a piece. So I think the way that we do that is, first of all, our reputation, our customers that get it and bring us in and validate us, but also powerful stories and analogies that can really get somebody to see the difference rather than putting you into a certain bucket that's crowded.
That's it. Because I sold security for a long time and always on the cutting edge. And if you didn't have a good analogy, everyone would put you into a category.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially when cyber's very keyword oriented. Your
Yes.
firewall, your threat detection, you fit into some little category, and they probably have something in every category, but not what you do.
And I feel like there's a pressure for most organizations to have to fit into that category, whether it's a Gartner quadrant and those keywords, but that's not their core. Some fit into multiple. I think it's what tends to happen is the cream rises to the top. So if you have the tenacity to make it through, you are servicing your clients properly, people will find out about you, and that's really the most powerful thing. What do your clients say about you? That is the sales pitch. That is the message to carry forward. The outputs of what you do. I think too many folks fall in love with their product, their process, their solution, and they come at it from the ground up instead of the top down. What does that matter unless somebody understands it and can apply that to help their business out? So I think it's sort of like golf, right? You want to know where the pin is, right? You're starting at the tee, but you want to know where you're ending up, and how do you reverse engineer that to get there? Talking about those outputs is key.
That's it, because the reps typically fall in love with the features and benefits, and they're interesting, but are they really what the client cares about? They care about.
I heard
Go ahead.
sorry. I heard a story. So one of the reps I worked with said, "Hey, look, if I was selling a date with Giselle, right? That seems like the best thing in the world to be selling. But what if the person's married and happily married? It's not really. It doesn't relate to them. There's no value. There's no gap to fill there. They're satisfied. So you could have the best product in the world, the best thing in the world. If it doesn't apply to the buyer, what's the point? You really have to understand that, right? So you can fall in love with yourself all you want. It's really not. I don't think the purpose. It helps, but it's not the purpose.
And also in the cyberspace, there's a lot of latent pain, very little active pain, but the active pain will get a lot of attention.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's not a big enough market to make a company out of. Typically, you have to get to the latent pain, the pain that they have, but they don't realize yet.
Yes, and consult. I follow you, obviously, many other folks, the sales gurus, if you will. But it really comes down to that consultative. Your value selling. You really have to ask the tough questions and understand their business first before you can. It's great that you understand yours, but you have to understand theirs. Yeah. And hence the consultative approach being the only way I think you can truly succeed. You may get lucky, but that's ultimately the challenge, the hard work.
And what's your team look like today, as far as like number of peoples, division of labor, things like that?
Yeah, sure. So we have a sales team of 8 and growing. One inside sales person, business development rep, one federal rep, and we have an international and a few enterprise spread out throughout the states. So we're kind of hitting that sweet spot where we can really look back at the metrics and see the patterns and really start to invest in areas of growth. So it's exciting. It's a 15-year-old organization, but recently just got into the enterprise side of things.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very unique company from that perspective. Usually you start a company and have a minimal viable product, hire sales and marketing right away and go. This organization was helping defend the internet and mission-based to save and improve human lives, working with governments and state, local authorities, and decided, you know what, we can take this thing commercially without compromising the mission. So it's an interesting challenge, a good one to have to bring to market. But we're right at that growth space right now, so things are looking good.
And how does it compare against what you've sold before?
So with what we sell now, it's a lot of it is the relationships that we have with the ISPs to have access to the data, the net flow, so that we can offer those outputs to organizations to have that visibility that they typically don't. Usually they have visibility that's on their edge or network, and they have minimal visibility from the outside. So to be able to provide that is key. So most of the other solutions I've sold were that sort of, okay, we have an attack, we need to react and respond. Here are the tools that we're going to use to do so. Why not actually have a look, active threat hunters looking outside of your network to see what's coming at you and maybe proactively defend? But most folks don't understand that they could have that visibility, so they kind of get stuck into their playbooks and do things, status quo. And then where we come in, the business typically doesn't care. Oh, we've already got tools. Yeah, you have a screwdriver. I've got the power drill. Yeah. I've got the hammer drill. They don't really know. They just think of it as tools. We've got security guys. We've got the tools. Yeah. So I think it's our job to really get the business behind the power of that visibility and being proactive. So there's a lot of challenges that we have, but they're good opportunities for us.
That's it. Because I tell reps all the time, it's like people don't like to talk about their problems or their pain. The immediate reaction is, I'm covered. And with your analogy, you have a screwdriver, but you don't have a power drill. You don't have a Phillips screwdriver. You don't have something that's going to unlock this. And then you have to get them opening their mind. And if you don't, they're selling you that they're fine. And no one's happy. They don't solve the problem and you don't get a sale.
I was blown away with one of my reps a few years ago. We're right at the finish line of a deal, of course, end of quarter. It's the final day. I think it was 2:00 Eastern. And I get the call, hey, can you jump on a WebEx real quick? We got to close the CISO on this deal, right? The whole team was bought on. The champion actually had used our solution in 3 other companies over a 10-year period. So this was a lock. But the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, the business side, came in and just wasn't ready to sign, just still didn't get it. So I heard the rep basically just come out and say, listen, your entire team is using a shovel right now. We've got a snowplow. And that's all he had to hear to be able to just push it over the top. He looked at everybody in the eye and everybody's shaking their head like, yeah, we've got a shovel, give us a snowplow. And obviously it's a lot more technical than that, but that was enough to push it over the top and get him to kick out the purchase order. And it's amazing how something so simple can actually move the needle sometimes, having that perception.
Yeah. And I think reps don't think through that, because that metaphor is powerful, because most everyone in the North has shoveled snow before, or can at least visualize it. And how hard it can be. And then if you have a snow plow or snow blower, it makes the job a lot easier.
I think the visual of him imagining his team working so inefficiently on a very challenging topic at the time was phishing attacks, where, and still are the number one, vector for which the criminals deliver their attacks. But to imagine their team fighting against that storm with shovels versus a snowplow really hit home for this individual. And but there's tons of them. I think it's just paying attention to and almost feeling their pain, of their current process, and coming up with ways to fight for them to get that budget, to get that across the line. Because there's certainly a technical person's going to understand, hey, I'm with this, I'm holding the screwdriver now, why don't I have a power drill? But maybe that doesn't translate to the business.
It doesn't, because they're talking about horsepower and pounds per square inch per second. And that just makes people dizzy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You don't know what that means. You can't visualize it. You don't feel it. You got to get something that someone feels. And mine with my product was, and believe me, they were on the third round of salespeople. So clearly there was a mismatch between how they were presenting it and why they weren't selling. Sure. Because everyone thought they had a firewall. And I go, well, you do. But imagine your firewall when you go to the airport is just determining if there's metal in the bag. Ours looks in the bag and finds all kinds of biomaterial, all kinds of weapons that may not be metal, any kind of liquids. And it does this at real speed. So there's no latency. Now imagine that airport being able to detect that without delaying everybody up for their flight. And all of a sudden everyone got it. And the timing was also
powerful.
Good. Yeah. Because now everyone can visualize it.
If I said, all about timing. It is all about timing. You can't just walk in and say that. It has to fit when someone's brain is breaking and you can see it, you put it back together with that statement.
Right.
It's powerful.
And if I took the technical approach of, we unpack the packets, we separate out, and everyone would just get like, I think everyone does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Packets, what's a packet?
Gotta go. I gotta go.
Because now you have to kind of educate too much. And a manager doesn't want a whole lot of it. It's like, why am I doing this? How's it different? What do I get out of it?
Right.
I don't want to buy another thing that does something that I already have, that just does it a little faster or a little better.
In your podcast, there's usually a theme, and the psychology comes into it, right? And it's, we can go very deep into psychology, but I think just staying high level and simplifying, keep it simple, stupid. That's the best probably phrase ever. But it applies to almost everything, and there is a lot of hard work to go into translating the packets, bits, bytes, technical co-founders that love everything and just want you to have this, certain presentation. But again, 1 out of 5,000 vendors, and maybe, 20% of them do something similar to you. You've got to stick out, and you're not going to stick out. It's good that everyone else is doing it that way. Most people do it that way. You do it this way, you'll stick out. You'll make those connections. People will appreciate that you pay attention to their challenge and that you're making sense out of it in multiple ways. To me, that's common sense, but it's not so common.
Well, everything's common sense once you figure it out, right? It's like a magic trick. Once you see how they pull the rabbit out of the sleeve, it's no longer magic. Oh, there's a tiny little rabbit in there already stuffed, and you pull it out. Then it's a common sense. But until then, it's mystery. And what I always tried to do is try and explain what I did to somebody who's not in the industry, or even that persona, a CISO, development manager, a CFO. And if I can communicate it to them in a way that they understand that it's like something else, we're the Netflix of this, we're the Amazon of that, something that they get, that you can now build off of, what you call a story or a metaphor or an analogy, then it becomes very common. Because this is when you study how people give a pitch of a movie or an investment, you can show charts and graphs, but it's like, can you connect this to something I know already?
Yeah. Ozark is the Breaking Bad, but with Jason Bateman, right? I don't know. There's so
exactly, and you get immediately what is it? Yeah.
There's too many shows to watch, right? So you got to convince your friends to watch the ones that you think are, I get that correlation. That's a good way to look at it.
Right. Because we are professional communicators, and too many of us, we get locked in the company deck, which was typically written by either somebody in marketing or product development who understands the product and how it works and what you get out of it, but not what problem it solves and what happens if you don't use it.
Right.
And empathy, that outward mindset to get you thinking like the person you're talking to.
That's right.
It's like one of my best performing videos was that clients are more like cats than dogs. And then I tell a story of this grumpy old cat I adopted that I had to earn the cat's respect. I had to earn the cat's attention. And that's how our clients are. We're like dogs, right? We run to the door, we jump up. You don't have to earn a dog's love, right? You receive a dog's love. A cat, you have to earn their attention. And that connects with people, because now you have a metaphor. Oh, I've been acting like a dog. They're a cat. And then when a cat meets a dog, the cat runs away.
Right. Yes.
And we try and find a friendlier cat.
Yes. Maybe we roll over and submit first, let the cat
exactly. Because what happens when two dogs meet in a park? The smart one rolls on its back and says, I want to play. The dumb ones bark at each other for like 15 minutes, and then they figure out, you're not going to kill me, right? No, I'm not going to kill you. So that's
these are the types of visuals I imagine in the boardroom to lighten up that mood, right? To kind of keep I think that's also, when you're in a boardroom meeting, there's many stakeholders in a meeting, and the mood is serious. There's also an opportunity to kind of cut through that, right? Because they're barking at each other, or maybe they're cats, they're, swiping at each other for whatever reason. It could be political, it could be whatever the reason. And we've all been there. And to be able to insert a comment to lighten the mood, but that's relevant to, in a lot of ways, it's analogies or summarizing. I think that's, considered a timely genius effect, right? It breaks down the walls, and people to kind of back off and start connecting to the purpose of why we're here, instead of barking at each other, so to speak.
Right. And you can
been there a million times. It's all too common.
Yeah, because without it, you're not on the same page. If you can confine what the problem is to something that everyone understands, then you can talk in that language.
Right.
Everyone knows what a cat and a dog is. They may not know what a CISO is and a development manager is. They have something in their mind, but it might not be what you're thinking.
Exactly. The power of communication. That's really what it is.
It is.
It's really what it is. There's a lot more to it, but that's the end result, right? That's the output. How are you taking that, like the funnel, how are you taking all of that information and disseminating it down into something that's a powerful statement, message, something to keep it moving forward. And, I have my own way. Everybody thinks a little bit differently. There's multiple, ways of doing it, but that people tend to latch onto that and grab onto that and can relate to that and move on to the next step, right? Instead of getting hung up on whatever it is. So,
because if we don't kind of be proactive about it, we tend to fall into what the client wants, which is, who are you? What do you do? How are you different? What's it cost?
That's right.
But people don't buy that
discount
way. Yeah. Okay, you're now an option that I have, instead of solving a real problem that I have and us working together on it, and why you need to do it now versus whenever you feel like it.
They say, oh, people don't buy from relationships. And okay, define the relationship. But what you're describing is, you don't start off with a relationship. You create the relationship. Yes. And the relationship is that, hey, there's mutual respect. And we are truly here to solve problems, and we're putting in the time, and we're relating that to whatever business challenges that you have. They remember that, right? So to come back and upsell that, or maybe you're with a new company and you come back and or maybe they go to a different.
Then you're just a vendor. You're more in the service space, providing a proposal based off of what they think they need versus what they do need. And there's not much value to that.
No, but it's all too common, isn't it, that we see the sales rep really just kind of close off and lose their passion, and they're trying to be something else, and they stick to the script, and they get all nervous, and it's all too common. The 80-20 rule. It seems like the majority don't tap into the power of just sitting there and, you have two ears and one mouth, right? Listen twice as hard as you're talking and truly take it in. So I find that most of the folks that I deal with that I've led, I take that approach. I go in with them. I do that. I show them. If they're freaking out about all the preparation for the meeting, sure, we want to prepare. Sure, we want to understand their background and some of their challenges. But let's go in without an agenda. From our perspective, we don't even know what they're dealing with. Let's listen. Let's figure it out. Right? We're there to help them. And I swear, most of those meetings we leave, and it's sort of like, wow, that was great. And it's almost easier, right? Versus coming in with a 50-page PowerPoint to bore the hell out of the entire audience. Come in with a whiteboard and a pen. Let's take down some notes. Let's figure out what's going on your side, right?
I always said,
stick out.
Oh, what's easier, prepare 30 slides or 5 great questions?
Right. Sure.
Where you're showing interest and curiosity about what they're doing. And through that, you're discovering, is it a match? Do they have the problem that you solve? Can you get them curious and interested in it? If you can't, it doesn't matter what you do. You're just not a match.
And if you can't, you've helped yourself and not spinning cycles.
Right.
You're moving on to the next one where you possibly can. And that's another issue with sales, just creating all this activity. My manager needs me to have 70 calls a day. I'm an inside rep. Or hey, how come you didn't send enough emails? And what are we doing? That has nothing to do.
It's just everywhere today.
It is, and part of my job is conditioning the board in prior companies and our organization, conditioning the business of what good looks like. It's what we're talking about, and the results do obviously happen with, did you hit the number, right? Are you actually making strides on the spreadsheet? Sure, but that's how you do it. So to me, it's funny how, especially the larger the organization, the more middle management is inserted, the more we're executing the will of the board in the form of that type of false activity. And we have the KPIs that we want. Maybe it's the will of the CFO or whatnot. But we all know that's actually distracting us from what we really need to be doing. You said it, I believe. The number one source of intelligence is in the customer's mind. The number 2 is in the reps, and the number 3 is in the CRM. So why are we looking at the third?
Number 3.
Most important. Yeah. Why?
Put all the focus on number 3, and it's mostly fiction because they know what you want to see. So they're not going to put in what you don't want to see. And now it's just taking up their time and their energy away from number 1 and number 2. And I get so much pushback.
Oh, you probably do, but there's a great picture, a caricature of a sales guy approaching the boss with unicorns and rainbows in front, and then behind his back he's hiding all the truth, right? All the negative. And I think that's almost everybody today in sales. If you just randomly pick somebody at a conference, that's what they're doing.
Right.
And you may get lucky, but you're certainly not going to be anywhere halfway as productive as taking a more realistic approach.
Right. And there's a place for the CRM, and it's valuable. I'm not diminishing its value, but what's in the customer's head is by far number 1. And if you don't work with that, because that's where the real selling takes place. And the rep understanding and communicating that. And as a leader, you want revenue. You don't want just a pretty CRM and a dashboard that's delightful, and the end of the quarter comes and you don't make your number. The board
revenue, but I want passionate salespeople that feel like when they wake up, they know what they need to do, and there's no gimmicks, there's no magic. It might appear that way, but it's a clear path for them to latch on to those analogies, those stories, the real meaning of how to navigate that persona, whoever that may be, business or technical or in between. And I feel like if when I do my one-on-ones and measure the effectiveness, or what I believe to be the effectiveness of the rep, a lot of it is, they might have different styles. And I need to figure out what works best for them. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm going after, not their activity or metrics.
Right.
I'm going after, who are they, how many light bulbs are going off with who they're speaking with. And that's hard to measure, but you can only do that with conversations with your reps. You can't necessarily look at Salesforce, right? Or Sugar, or any of these CRMs, and, oh, another light bulb went off. That was a great email, Charles. Like, it's not how it works. You have to put in the time as a leader to get to know your people, to have these conversations, and the gold nuggets come out of those conversations.
Right.
Go on the road with them. I mean, right now it's difficult, but when things do get back to normal, go on the road with them, and partner with your reps, and show them, how you do it. Don't be afraid to, stick yourself out there, right? That goes a long way. I think people appreciate that more so than the weekly report from Salesforce.
Right, because that's manufactured. That's given to you to minimize the amount of pressure you put on the person. That's
right.
And that's a very dangerous thing to run with. I think what you're doing by talking with them, you get them thinking about the problem, thinking about the deal, because you can play the client, right? And you can say, well, if you were the client, what would you be thinking at this point?
Yeah.
And reps, naturally, we're mammals. We're always overconfident. We're not proactive creatures. We're reactive creatures. So if you can put the problem in front of them that you think is going to happen, like, why would it stall? Why aren't they calling you back? When's the next meeting? What do they need to give the CFO to justify this expense? Does it make sense financially compared to the alternatives? You get that engagement, you get them thinking about the real deal instead of, they love me, or, that there's a great presentation. They just love us and they love the product, but they internally might not be able to communicate the value.
That's a really good point. And we do role play, but the role play is more along the lines of what you just laid out, as opposed to the pitch, more okay, I'm going to kick off a few challenges here that, this could be potentially where we're at. How are we going to, when we do this together, we try to figure it out together. And we try to share these roundtable type meetings that we have weekly. We certainly go through the blocking and tackling, but we try to share these situations and grab input from other folks to try to get creative and come up with a great response for us to go out this week with these challenges. And we come at it from that perspective, but it has to be through the communication. A lot of leaders kind of sit back on their desk, and they have these conversations with their peers, and there's disconnected from their group. And I certainly know that you're not like that, and there's a lot of folks that are not like that. But to me, it's just a missed opportunity for leaders to not really embrace the communication with their team.
Right, because when you talk about coaching, that's what it is. Especially if you have a small team, you have that collective experience. There's very rarely do you find a problem that someone hasn't seen before.
Sure.
And usually there's a way of preventing it. Repairing it is typically pretty hard, but the patterns tend to repeat. And
they do. And the other side of it is the leader should also learn in that process. In my opinion, it's a two-way street. Hence partnership. I like to call my reps the CEOs of their patch. I want to empower them with the tools that they need to survive. And I'm more of a board member coming in, and they maybe not a board member, but some support mechanism coming in. And board member is a bad analogy, but some support mechanism coming in for them to report back the business, report back what they need. And without that relationship, it's impossible. They're going to hide things. They're going to share with me what they think I need to hear, as opposed to truly opening up. If I don't open up, how can they open up? If I don't expose myself a little bit, how can they? It's a
Right.
relationship with the reps.
Because you have a very powerful vantage point because you hear from all of them, plus you're
Yes.
internal to the company and you've heard some of the legacy stuff that's happened. So your opinion is very valuable because, you know, a rep is heads down on their pipeline and nothing else matters. So they may not see things. And plus they don't want to see the negative things.
Sure.
And they'll only admit it until after it happens. And then it's like,
Right.
oh, damn, you know.
Yeah.
It's very hard to repair it, you know, once they say, the client says, no, we're not doing it. Instead of, can you give us more information before we submit it? You know, there's these little touch points and, oh, we went with somebody else. You know, that's hard to repair. You know,
Yeah, we'll wait till next year. Yeah.
Versus
where we want to be.
Yeah. So you look for the signals. Are they openly and constructively communicating with you? Do you sense that? Do you feel like you're partners in crime, or do you feel like vendor customer?
Yes.
Little symptoms of a good deal versus a bad deal. And all of a sudden you get your reps thinking like, you know, they're not calling me back the way they should. You know, right. They're asking me.
It's been a few weeks.
Yeah. And they're asking me if we do what our competitor does.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and you're like, we got to get on this.
Or they're asking me a question where they clearly don't even understand what we do. So why do you think this is an opportunity? We have work to do. But
even more important.
Yeah. You suss out those things. But yeah, that's I enjoy what I do. I'm about the people in the process. So I feel not everybody is the same, but I feel most tend to share the right information and want to collaborate and work on solving these problems and being, you know, win. We just want to win.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see that so many other leaders out there just still stick to that approach you know, get out there and do it this way. And, you know, why didn't you have the deal? Why isn't this closing this quarter? And it doesn't help. It actually hurts, I think.
It doesn't help. And then if it goes south, they blame the rep. But yet, is the rep trained and coached and helped? And does the rep feel comfortable being honest and open and coming to you before it's in the ditch? The minute they sense it's heading towards the ditch, you know, because
the coach, right? The coach is on the hook for the loss, right? So shouldn't they have a part of the win? Shouldn't they be a part of, you know, making sure that team is set up to win, or that individual is up to par with the rest of the team, or whatever the analogy you want to put in? Their neck is on the line too. So they should have they should look at it from that perspective, and maybe roll up their sleeves and jump in a little bit when needed, but just a little bit.
Hey, this has been a fun conversation. Where can people go to follow you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my name's Jeff Fleischer. I'm on LinkedIn, and my company is Team Cymru, teamcymru.com. It's CYMRU. It's Welsh for Welsh. So it's spelled differently than what it sounds. But yeah, happy to communicate with anybody, and I love these topics. So I really appreciate you doing what you do, and I'll be tuning in for life, Brian. Thank you.
I saw this interesting comment on LinkedIn this week, and I got a lot of interesting comments. And what it always comes down to is that so many people are stuck in the B player trap. Now, this comment said, hey, is there really anything new in selling? And I was like, what a limited mindset. If I said, is there anything new in psychology? People would laugh. Anything new in medicine? People would laugh. Anything new in law? Anything new in accounting? Everyone would laugh, but everyone thinks that selling is this so confined skill that you either have or you don't have, as opposed to a talent, as opposed to a performance. Is there anything new in comedy? We've been laughing for centuries. Is there anything new there? Jesus, man. What I have learned in the last 2.5 years doing the online courses is that there's so much room for improvement in myself and everybody I talk to. And what's great is when you find somebody who wants that growth mindset, that looks at this as a journey, that looks at this as a profession, as a skill sets and performances to make great money. Because let's face it, this is the last bastion of income. Meaning, where else can you make this type of income without working for yourself? And trust me, working for yourself is a little overrated. Guess who you have as a boss? Guess who you have as an employee? Yeah, the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror. But in B2B sales, no capped income. What you can do today with technology and virtual assistants and just working smarter and social media and the internet, it's so much fun because now there's not the limits that there were before with information. I remember, before LinkedIn, it was like we would swap spreadsheets, CRM databases basically, and, have a little consortium of reps who were selling in a similar space but not competitive products. We would have to network, live and share information. Today, it's limitless. So what I developed was start the conversation, get the meeting. Now, it's not just ways of connecting with other people. It's how do you scale it using technology and other ways. And I show you exactly what I've done over the last pretty much 9 years with technology and my system that I've taught on-premise for about 7 years, online for the last 2.5. And in this course, this is a journey course because the course has become, I'd say, 300% better since I started it. Why? Because of all the use cases, all the students that come in and have one-on-ones with me, everything. And guess what? Nobody joins the course because they have an easy sale. It's only the hardest of the hard. And people, in most cases, are paying their own money, their own time. So they're making an investment and they're selling the hardest of the hard in the most competitive of spaces. We had one person who sells into hospitality right now, closing the biggest deals in the company's history. And well, how can that be possible if it makes business sense? We work on those cases. You get to hear the one-on-ones. You get to participate in the office hours. Now, I'll describe it for you. The course is a bunch of videos of instructions, but what also has is office hours. This is an hour meetup every other Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you can't make it, you can submit your questions before, but you don't miss anything because it's all recorded and put into the course. If you're in the course, you got to be listening to these. It gives you, every other week of fresh ideas, fresh use cases, and the one-on-ones, 30-minute Zoom call with me, nobody else, no flunky or anything. And we talk through your particular case, look at what you're doing. And these are all recorded and put in so you can see exactly step by step how we're doing this. If it gets stuck, we figure out a smarter way. You can go through deals and winning the complex sale. You get to see a deal from start to finish and how these large deals get done. And I'm not teaching the stuff that everyone else, this is not pitching. This is not a better way to pitch. This is a way to connect with another human being and build a conversation that turns into a meeting. This is a talent. This is a skill that will serve you your entire life, no matter what you want to do. Because everything that you want is held by somebody else, and they will give it to you if you give them something. This is the nature of human interaction, and I've been a student of it my whole life. And when I went out on my own, I had to retool because I was used to having a company, if someone else's company, a product, and I wasn't used to selling to this persona. I was used to selling to a different persona. Very comfortable with that. This one, it threw me for a little bit of a loop. But, I adapted. I broke it down. I used my own system to work on my system. And I show you how to do this as well. What would your life be like if your week was full of meetings? Almost, you got to put effort into it, but not much. And I show you how you can put even less effort into it. I've taken people with no sales experience and within 2 months have them rocking with this. So you got to check it out. That's at b2brevenue.com. Hit the training tab. You might as well sign up now because things are about to change. So what else can you do? You got to get better at selling. I work on it every day, most of the day, my selling skills, because this is a performance profession. Anybody can tell a joke. We can all copy Chris Rock's jokes, but none of us can deliver it. Why are there 1,000 comedy writers for every comedian? It's because writing jokes is the easy part. It's delivering them. We're the comedians. We're the stand-ups. The writers, they're in the back room joking around. But the thing is, they make 1/100th of the stand-up. And there's a reason for that, because everyone pays for the performance. When was the last time you read a joke book? You don't, because that is it. It's a performance. We are the comedians of this. We're the ones out there sharing the insights, the capabilities of our product, but we are professional communicators. And the days of the cold pitch are very limited. The cold pitch does work if the other person knows who you are and it is in market. That's very rare, though. What things are you in market for? I'm in market right now for about 3 or 4 things. And if somebody hits me up in the right way, they get my time. But if they hit me up for the thousands of other things that I'm not in market for, I just ignore them. I bet you do the same thing. So how do we connect with another human being? But when somebody approaches me in the way that I like to be approached, I'm open to talking with them. It works because it works on you and it works on me. Go to b2brevenue.com. Check it out. See if it's a good match for you. Check out my YouTube videos, Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. If you're on LinkedIn and you see my content flying by, give it a little like, a little thumbs up, a little celebration, a little comment would be appreciated. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm almost out of connections. I don't know. I got 3 or 4 left, and I'm scared if I hit the limit that I can't connect with anybody else. But you can follow me. We also have a podcast page for each of the podcast pages. So search that, follow that. I post videos on that all day long. Try and keep you both entertained and informed to be the smartest salespeople out there. Okay. Now go crush it. We'll see you next time.